My name is Haley Carlson. I am the program manager for the Integrated Modeling Program for Canada, which you'll be hearing more about today. And I thought we would just get started here because we have quite a bit to pack into the next 45 minutes or so. So we'll be getting started, but before we begin, I just wanted to let everyone know about the procedure for asking questions. If you have a question anytime during the webinar, feel free to type it in using the chat or the Q&A panel on the bottom right of the WebEx screen. And you're also welcome to follow up with panelists after the webinar has closed. We'll be compiling questions and discussing them verbally during the question and answer period at the end of the session. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website at gwf.usas.ca/IMPC after we are able to get it uploaded. And with that, I'll introduce the panelists so we can begin. So today we'll be hearing from Dr. Saman Razavi and Karl-Erich Lindenschmidt from the University of Saskatchewan. They are both the co-principal investigators of the Integrated Modeling Program for Canada and will be reviewing major progress and achievements over the first 3 years of the Integrated Modeling Program. Saman?
Thank you, Haley. Hello, everyone. I'm Saman Razavi, Associate Professor at School of Environment and Sustainability and Global Institute for Water Security at University of Saskatchewan. It is with great pleasure to welcome you all to our third IMPC Annual General Meeting. We started this program back in July 2017. In the second annual meeting last year, about the same time, we had about 100 participants from academia, governments, and private sectors physically present in the room. This year, of course, things have changed and we have moved to the online mode. So interestingly, we have many more registrants this time, which is great and perhaps an indication that we can have a larger reach online. So we have come a long way, have developed a set of tools to predict water resources futures and to support decision and policy making. And importantly, our collaborators and stakeholders community has grown, almost doubled over the past 3 years. So it's now time to look back and review and celebrate our achievements over the past 3 years. We've completed almost the phase 1 of the program. We have been reviewed positively by the Global Water Futures and the external reviewers, and Global Water Futures have recently accepted our proposal for phase 2 of this program, which is going to begin in September. So at this point, not only we want to look back and celebrate, we also need to look forward and plan together for the next phase of IMPC. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Karl Lindenschmidt, the new co-PI of IMPC. Karl has been with the project since its inception and recently and graciously joined the IMPC leadership team. His leadership and insights will be essential to the steering of the program as we are growing. And now I'm passing it to Karl to begin the celebration.
Thank you, Saman. And welcome, everybody, celebrating 3 years of IMPC with us. For those of you new to our research program, let me provide a bit of context. The Integrated Modeling Program of Canada, or IMPC for short, is one of 39 projects that are part of Global Water Futures. Global Water Futures is a University of Saskatchewan-led research program that is funded in part by a $77.8 million grant from the Canada First Research Excellence Fund. The overarching goal of the program is to deliver risk management solutions informed by leading-edge water science and supported by innovative decision-making tools to manage water futures. IMPC is one of the largest projects running out of GWF, focused on the development and integration of modeling capability. We work in close partnership with the core modeling program of Global Water Futures. IMPC responds to the complexity and uncertainty posed by climate change by developing complex model tools that will allow us to explore future scenarios, the triple bottom line trade-offs of our decisions about water, and ultimately aid us in developing robust solutions. Our program responds to the major challenges that impede effective characterization, prediction, and management of future water resources in a climate change context, including the failure to link important features of human and natural systems, fragmentation in options and governance, and the assumption of stationarity in current practice and design. Our project is pan-Canada in scope, but in the first 3 years, research focused on the Yukon River Basin, and then the Mackenzie, also the Nelson Churchill, and the Great Lakes St. Lawrence. And that will be extended into phase 2. Okay. We have an interdisciplinary team of investigators leading us across 5 Canadian universities. They come from backgrounds in engineering, natural sciences, social sciences, economics, and computer science. And as we enter into the next phase of our research program, extending from 2020 to 2023, we are adding 2 new investigators. We also receive a lot of support from Dr. Martin Clark and Dr. Al Pietranero, who lead the GWF core modeling team, and Jay Famiglietti and John Pomeroy, directors of the Global Institute for Water Security and Global Water Futures program at the University of Saskatchewan. Our research program is organized around 4 themes. So theme A is improving the representation of cold region processes in natural systems, modeling, and providing tools to address modeling uncertainties. Theme B integrates water resource models with assessment tools to explore ecosystem constraints and economic trade-offs of water decisions and development. Theme C is focused on risk analysis and developing future scenarios. And Theme D develops decision support tools and involves collaborators in the research process. Today, in this opening webinar of our 3rd annual meeting, we will provide a high-level overview of some of our major achievements, developing, integrating, and applying modeling tools. Due to time restrictions, we will not be able to go into details in this opening webinar, but many of our major achievements will be explored in more depth in 5 follow-up webinars that will occur over the next few days. And these will be listed on the last slide of this webinar, and will be recorded and available on our website. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Saman.
Sure, thank you, Carl. So on developing modeling tools, we have developed a lot of progress on land surface hydrology modeling in partnership with the core modeling team of GWF. We have already developed those models for the most major basins of Canada, including Saskatchewan, that is what you see on the screen, Nelson Churchill, Mackenzie, Yukon, Great Lakes, and river basins. The mesh modeling framework has been central to our modeling work, but we have also used other models like HYPE, Raven, SWOT, HPV, and others in different basins. In these developments, we have particularly emphasized on improved representation of cold regions processes, including frozen soil, permafrost, snow processes, glaciers, and basically freeze-thaw cycles. And we have started also making progress on improved representation of lakes and wetlands, which are very important in northern latitudes. We have extensively used some of the remote sensing products to better force and constrain on land surface hydrology models. Most notable is the product by the GRACE satellite mission that quantifies the total water storage anomaly. We have directly assimilated GRACE data into our model for better representation of water stored in snow, lakes, and groundwater. And as you may all know, uncertainty in climate data, particularly in precipitation, is substantial in Canada because of our very coarse coverage of gauging networks. So we have tried to characterize and address these uncertainties in different large-scale climate products across Canada, and we directly took that uncertainty into account. Also, we have made significant progress in integrating models of hydrology with the human systems, with an emphasis on our water engineering works like dams, reservoirs, diversions, and irrigation. And the method we developed for integrating these human processes into hydrology have already found applications beyond IMPC and Canada, and with the most sophisticated models such as power flow. Given that there are different hydrologic models being used now in IMPC and across GWF in general, a team of us aimed at intercomparing the different available models and to identify their pros and cons according to a range of criteria and purposes. So the experimental design of this intercomparison project is based on the same domain and under the same forcing and other types of data needed to make sure that we compare apples to apples. So on the screen, you see an example product, which is a comparative plot for different models. We try to be inclusive and include as many models as we can, even machine learning type models that have gained momentum recently in the community. And the results have been quite interesting. In particular, we're learning a lot by benchmarking the performance of these physically based models against machine learning models that are purely data driven. And these new insights are helping us, guiding us to improve the physically based models that we are developing. Of course, directly recognizing uncertainties in all modeling steps and data has been central to IMPC. We have developed a new set of next generation tools for sensitivity and uncertainty analysis called WARS tool. You might already know that it has its own website called www.wars-tool.com, where you can download our latest software and documents. In November 2019, we released version 2, which has a number of new features, including a new method to handle time varying sensitivity and uncertainty, which is very important and often neglected in our dynamical earth and environmental systems models. Also, for the first time in our community, we developed a method to account for correlations between parameters in the analysis. And also, again, this has been ignored in the past. Also, a new method, or probably the only method to handle model crashes in this context. So if you're a modeler, you may know that complex models frequently crash during their runs, and that can cause a lot of problems for modelers for different purposes, including for uncertainty analysis. And now we have a method to handle that. We developed also a method to run sensitivity and uncertainty analysis using any given data or sample of model runs. Basically, you don't need to run your model based on a particular design of experiment anymore, and you can recycle your previous model runs. So we have applied WARS tool to our models in different Canadian basins and characterized the dominant controls of uncertainty. Those analyses have guided really the development and parameterization of some of our models, in particular the mesh one. Our user base is not only within IMPC and GWF, and now we have more than 300 users from 50 countries globally. We have developed an integrated transboundary water resources model for Saskatchewan and Lower Nelson River Basin in the ModSim decision support system environment. This model simulates the operation of the existing water infrastructure, water allocation, and consumption. It can also simulate any potential or planned developments in the basin and assess trade-offs across political borders and various interests, and evaluate vulnerabilities under a wide range of possible climate and policy scenarios. This has been really a major achievement. This model is one of the largest and most complex of its kind globally, with for a basin area of more than 400,000 square kilometers, with 59 reservoirs and more than 400 demand nodes. So this map shows the state-of-the-art studies around the world with similar sizes. It is interesting to see that the complexity of our system and the developed model is pretty comparable even to the largest systems, for example, in California. And here we have addressed different challenges like fragmentation in operation and management, different water rights and licensing systems in different jurisdictions, data confidentiality and unavailability, difficulties in implementing transboundary agreements, scaling compatibility of water data and economic data, and also computational burden of running a giant model like this. IMPC, as its name suggests, is about integration of different disciplines and the models developed in different disciplines. So from the inception, we started working on integrating modeling tools under two main categories: natural process models and engineered process models. For the natural processes, we have been implementing everything, basically all submodels in the mesh modeling framework. And these include models of hydrology, sediment and nutrient transport, river ice, and aquatic ecology. For the engineering processes, we have used the ModSim decision support system as the underlying platform to bring together the models of reservoir systems, water allocation, agricultural water demand, hydroeconomy, and farmer behavior model. In phase 2 that we are about to begin, the next 3 years, we are bringing everything together and build a seamless integrated modeling platform that can simulate the interactions and feedback mechanisms across these models. I also should note that for this integration purpose, the Nelson Churchill is our leading lab. And over time, what we will learn in our leading lab can be extended to other major basins of Canada and potentially globally. As part of our integration, I want to highlight some of our work on hydroeconomic modeling. Our analyses are based on input-output data broken down to sub-basin levels, and we have already developed these for Saskatchewan and Great Lakes River basins. Now integrated into the ModSim platform, we can assess the impact of water policy change and different types of water allocation strategies on the GDP of different regions and provinces. And in this plot, to the top right, for example, you can see how adapting a right policy will improve our GDP under climate change conditions and possible water shortages. And here we are showing a high-level diagram of how models of climate and hydrology, water management, economics have been tied together. I'm not getting to the details, but you can tune into the relevant talk to hear more details.
So we are also working to assess the ecosystem constraints of these decisions. This team here, from this slide here, led by Tim Jardine, has used simulated flows to develop presumptive standards. These are a conservative estimate of acceptable flow alteration from the natural flow regime. These standards form the foundation for a larger environmental flow framework that is being developed for the Saskatchewan River Basin, allowing for the integration and testing of ecological flow hypotheses for specific species and processes. And also being developed is a water quality modeling toolkit. And here I'm showing temperature profiles for Lake Diefenbaker. This is an important repository for the upper South Saskatchewan River. And it serves as a boundary condition for other water quality models, in-stream water quality models down to the Saskatchewan River Delta, which is then another repository for sediment and nutrients in the whole Saskatchewan or the upper Saskatchewan River basin. And also river ice modeling. We've done a lot of headway in this. For one is the forecasting capabilities. So there is now an operational for ice jam flood forecasting system for the Churchill River in Labrador, and others are being tested right now for the Red River in Manitoba, and we're just also developing one for the St. John River in New Brunswick, and there's other ones also being developed. And it's not just for forecasting, but also to look at or test mitigation measures to see how much these measures can reduce the hazard and also the risk. So we're also including damages in the hazard and flood risk assessment. We have also worked with the computer science team to develop pilot versions of user interfaces to visualize data and support decision making. The image on this slide shows a part of our water management model, ModSim, visualized for the South Saskatchewan River Basin, Saskatchewan. The goal is to visualize scenario options along with associated economic and ecological trade-offs. These and other tools we have developed are available on our website. They will be significantly enhanced in the next few years.
So one of the IMPC objectives is to support policy and decision making. To do so, a central theme of IMPC is to move from predictions to scenarios. And that is because we already know that the future is deeply uncertain, and our best guess estimates of the future, what we refer to as predictions, might be way off. So instead of instead of predictions, we've been trying to generate a large set of plausible future scenarios to cover a range of possibilities that might happen in the future, to build robustness and resilience in our water systems. For this purpose, we have learned a lot by looking into the past and far past with the aid of creating proxy records, and basically we have reconstructed the hydrology of the western basins for the past 400 years at the weekly timestamp. We have also looked in the future, the full ensemble of CMIP5 projections. And based on what we have learned about the very wide range of uncertainty in future projections, we have developed and implemented a new integrated framework for building robustness and resilience. In brief, we have come up with the most important climate change attributes for our regions, including summer precipitation, winter precipitation, annual temperature, and a signature that represents the intensity and duration of precipitation in the future, which we all know is quite important and typically it has been ignored when people have looked at climate change scenarios. And then we have perturbed all these attributes in the ranges of uncertainty, and we have come up with thousands of possible climate futures. Then we fed them all those scenarios into the integrated hydrologic human model that we've already developed, and we have generated what we refer to as exposure maps. So you see some examples here, for example. Of course, we're dealing with a 5-dimensional space because we're looking at 5 different attributes, but here, for example, you can see change in average flow in the future as a result of change in winter precipitation, for example, from -20% to +50%, and change in summer precipitation from -50% to 20%. And you can see by these changes how the change in average flow, for example, from 0 at the base case will change. And also, we've been looking at flood. So we have extensive flood research program now. And what, for example, would be the change in 10-year flood under different climate change scenarios. From water management perspective, we've been also looking at a lot of risk and vulnerability indices. For example, risk of violating the master agreement on apportionment. And basically, this is a decision space where we are in the risk space if the change in precipitation and temperature and summer and winter might be in a particular way, we're facing some risk. And then now we know where there would be no risk. So these are helpful in supporting decision making.
There are two major ways we are pursuing to transfer scientific knowledge into practice. One is by including partners and collaborators in the research, and there are a number of examples across our project. But I wanted to highlight the modeling intercomparison project running on the Great Lakes and now the Nelson Churchill. In this project, collaborators participate in the research by contributing in-kind models, data, time. They meet monthly and are largely interested in learning more about the strengths and weaknesses of different models or enhancing their own in-house models. We are also working to transfer research into practice where possible. For example, this is the work on river ice modeling, where the development has led to an operational ice jam flood forecasting system for the Churchill River in Labrador that I mentioned before. And another example comes from a recent scenario analysis performed for Western economic diversification on the proposed Upper Capel water supply project in Saskatchewan. We provided an initial evaluation of trade-offs that could be associated with different options for the proposed conveyance structure. In general, since we began in 2017, collaborators involved with the project have roughly doubled. And as we move into the next phase of our research, we would like to continue to engage with our partners to enhance and apply the modeling tools we have developed. In February of this year, we learned that our research program would be extended for an additional 3 years with support from Global Water Futures. We are in the process of convening with our investigators and expect to have additional details on specific research plans in the coming year. And as I mentioned during the introduction, there were many details we were not able to cover in this opening presentation. I hope you are able to join in some of the webinars in this series to get more information on specific topics.
Great, thank you so much, Carl. We'll be moving into the question and answer period right now. Feel free to type your questions using the chat or the question and answer panel in the bottom right. I will be asking some questions, posing questions to you and Carl from the questions we got asked during our registration. So one of those questions was, given that COVID has impacted the world right now and people are often put in difficult work circumstances, how are you anticipating that situation to impact the research moving forward into the next 3 years?
Carl, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I can speak for myself. I know a lot of my work is modeling based, and it seems to work okay doing that work remotely. There is meetings and also online and remote, and the modeling work is moving forward, and I'm also in touch with our collaborators and partners via telephone, and seems to work okay. I'm not sure what your experience is with that, Saman.
Yeah, I should say I'm almost in the same boat. Most of IMPC work packages are computational in nature, so we've been blessed with that basic because we don't do much lab work or field work. We've been lucky, and we've been able to run our program from homes. Of course, there has been a lot of hiccups and difficulties, but we are getting there. And so, of course, a major part of our program that now is still working on is user engagement, knowledge mobilization, and bringing different people together, not only investigators, but also the stakeholders community. So we want to really co-create knowledge with our stakeholders and users. So COVID has had some impact or will have some impact, probably adversely, but what we are trying to do, what we are trying to take advantage now of the online platforms to reach out to our stakeholder community. So we are going to design a set of webinars and meetings so we can exchange ideas with our stakeholders and make sure everyone is on the same plate as we move forward. So there might be some delays in some of our deliverables, but hopefully that those delays will not be significant. It also may cause some financial problems because of COVID, because of reduced efficiency in producing some of the committed deliverables. We're working on that because, of course, we have a large number of HQP students and postdocs working with us. And of course, different people have different situations, got stuck in different countries, or might not be able to work as efficiently as they could in their office. So we are trying to help people and we are there for them. We're trying to be there for them. So there has been some problems and because of that, there might be some delays, but hopefully we can fix those in the months to come, not to basically to minimize the effect on our productivity.
Okay, thank you. Karl, I'll direct this question to you first. Could you expand a bit more for attendees on some of your plans in phase 2 for the work packages you're working
on? Expand on collaborators and partners, or?
Collaborators and partners and the research direction you're hoping to take.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do, maybe I'll speak to the river ice work. I am very dependent on, especially in the ice jam flood forecasting context, on the hydrological models of the basins. Yes, and so we've been expanding now into the St. John River. We now have a mesh model of that river completed, and the forecast of those flows can then be coupled to the river ice hydraulic models. This is the same also with the Yukon. Up till now, I waited to implement the flood forecasting capabilities on the Porcupine because the mesh model, the outlet was only at Eagle. Now that has been extended to include the Porcupine tributary of the Yukon River Basin, and now with the top hydrologist in the Yukon, Benoit Turcotte, we would like to develop that flood forecasting capabilities for Old Crow on the Porcupine. So we're moving into other basins and also looking at doing sort of a forecasting pre-assessment with a geospatial modeling framework where we look at, because river ice it's very much not only a hydraulic but also a fluvial geomorphological phenomenon that we're looking at different patterns in the geomorphology of these rivers where ice jam, there is a susceptibility for ice jamming. And then with the hydraulics, looking to see if there is then a propensity for ice jam flooding. And this will bring us then more into a pan-Canadian context where we can make these pre-assessments across Canada to see where there might be hot spots for ice jam flooding.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karl. Saman, did you want to answer the same question and tell the attendees a little bit about where you're hoping to take your research into phase 2 of the research program?
Yeah, I think my goal or my dream is to really develop a seamless integrated modeling platform. So as many of you might know, I mean, we have had a very disciplinary scientific discovery, probably historically always. And now, of course, in the past 10 years or so, probably different disciplines have tried to come together and look at the interactions and simulate basically the interactions, feedback mechanisms between the different subsystems of the Earth system. So my hope is that in IMPC, we could, or I could, play a role really in that direction and to have a holistic scientific discovery approach. And, because we already know it's a very important, probably the principle of parsimony, Occam's razor type of things are dying. And no, we have to be more holistic. We have to have basically, we have to be as inclusive as we can rather than being reductionist in our research. So we've come a long way already, and I'm hoping in the next 3 years we can have a good, accurate representation of feedback mechanisms within climate, hydrology, economic system, and basically aquatic ecology. So that's the goal. And as part of that, because we want to make sure that our science is applicable to real world problems, really our hope and our plan and our efforts have been to, and it's going to be to include our stakeholder community, in particular boundary organizations, water authorities, for example, locally like Saskatchewan Water Security Agency, Alberta Environments and Parks, Manitoba Water Infrastructure, Prairie Provinces Water Board, International Joint Commission, and so on. So we know their perspectives, we hear their knowledge, and we try to incorporate those all. So our products, by the end of the day, will be usable for those stakeholders and users.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have a couple of comments from Mohammed El-Shami for you, Karl. He mentioned that a mesh model is already set up for the porcupine, and that Benoit has actually just left the Yukon government. So we can follow up with more specifics after the meeting on those comments. And then I'll leave you folks with one more general question. In terms of this research program's emphasis on integration and embracing and characterizing uncertainty, what do you see? What is your vision for how this research program will impact the paradigm, the general paradigm of water management in Canada right now? What do you see this research program's legacy being?
I think I can speak to that. So traditionally, we have a predict and act paradigm in science and in policy making. So basically, you come up with your best estimates of the future might look like. And for example, the best estimate for Canada in general is that we are going to be a wetter country, a warmer and wetter. So of course, this is some best estimate, but with significant uncertainty around that. So if you look at really the output of CMIP5, basically different climate projections for Canada, of course, the expected value, yes, is we are going to get more water, but when you look at the standard deviation of those, even there is quite a bit of possibility that we get much more rain, for example, in different parts of Canada. So the uncertainty is very big. We want to move away from this predict and act paradigm and go towards a more scenario discovery paradigm, where we can come up with scenarios of plausible futures that might happen and build resilience, build robustness against those possible scenarios. For example, reduce the sensitivity of water system if the future basically deviates from the assumptions we hold about the future when we developed our water infrastructure. So this is very important and point. And you know what? It won't be possible to do by scientists or engineers only. This definitely needs an active engagement of stakeholders and users, because in the process of scenario development, we need to engage them. We need to know what scenarios they want to see, what they want the future to look like in different parts of Canada. For example, in Saskatchewan, we have visions and ambitions for extensive irrigation expansion. We need to engage those people interested, basically stakeholders, and to come up with possible scenarios of those things. And this is not only about climate and hydrology, it's a lot of it is about scenarios of political changes, scenarios of human perceptions changes, perceptions of risk, how that changes over time. And it's a very multidimensional problem and needs involvement on many people. We've started working on that, and hopefully in the next 3 years, these efforts will come to fruition.
Thank you. Karl, did you want to add anything on your perspective? Okay, I'm seeing a nod for no. With that, we're almost at the end of the time here, so I'm just going to remind everyone that we have a series of webinars coming up. 2 more scheduled today. One, in fact, is starting in about 45 minutes here, and then the other 3 will be handled tomorrow. You'll see Karl and Saman make another appearance tomorrow. For now, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email, use the emails on this slide to ask those follow-up questions. And we hope to see you in the other webinars in the series. Thank you so much.